Alright, check it. Welcome back to another Blackbook session, everyone. I dropped this piece for one of my fellow subscribers who goes by The Wanderer. Enjoy the walkthrough of this one. I kicked off the sketch using a normal lead pencil. I like working with pencils since I get to play around with the letters and get to erase things that I don't like. On this piece specifically though, I kept the letters simple. Something like straight letters. The homie Lotus had asked me about letter weight, positioning, and sizing. Those are all things I roughly figure out while sketching, or even before I lay down a line on what I'm gonna be working on. I like to mentally prepare myself and see how much space I'm gonna be working with. This is how I figure out how much weight and width I could add onto the letters, how the positioning is gonna be, even what the size of the letters are gonna be looking like. I do this so that everything could fit on whatever I'm gonna be working on, whether it be a black book, a canvas, or a wall, and everything in between. You always want to have a mental image of how big you're gonna be able to go. In this case, The Wanderer is a longer name. I wanted everything to fit and be balanced, so I chose to work on it on a 6x9 black book. Balance is real important. It's a key ingredient to have your throwies, burners, and pieces looking fly. I made sure to keep a certain balance in the rough sketch of the letters. The letter weight and width were one size and running along throughout all the letters, horizontally positioned. Since this was just a rough sketch, I kept the sketch lines really light. Once I had the positioning, size, and weight of the letters set, I started retracing the letters again using the lead pencil and leaving the lines a little darker to see what lines I'm gonna be working with. While I was doing this, I started adding minor details like thin extensions and arrows, and implemented my cuts where the letters were colliding. Arrows actually came into play a lot with this piece, and the minor extensions also played a big role in the letters, giving them more flavor and structure. Those are two key details that stood out to me. I like to place my arrows meticulously so that they could have a balance as well. I was rocking with how all of the letters were coming out. The E's I laid down were fly. I liked them a lot. They were simple and stylistic. I had a little trouble with the R's, especially the first version of the R. I thought it was kinda ugly, but I got something rolling. The last 4 letters are the same back to back, so that was kinda cool to play with. I felt it was right to have the beginning and end letter the same size, so I matched up the size of the final R with the W. The R was a little different than the first one. I added some arrows on it to match up with the W and to have it balanced. I also added some parts of the letters falling off using half-cut circles and thin rectangles. These details always come through. I have to say, I know using pencil helped me a lot, and it helped me get everything balanced and correct. I moved on to my outline and decided to go with the Hummer Molotov paint marker. This was like a dark orange, almost brown color. Real dope. The outline is crucial to the piece, and since I had used pencil for the sketch, I wanted to use a dark color. I didn't want to use a light color because I felt like that would intertwine with the lead. Say it was like a yellow or something, I know it would look a little rough and sloppy. So I chose a darker paint marker, and I was glad with that decision. It really suited how dark I wanted the outline to be to avoid the sloppiness. Plus, I got to experiment. I've been saying how I want to switch up the outline schemes and try out new colors. I went around and traced/outlined every letter I had laid down. I had some areas that I lightly changed and shifted. You have the ability to do that. Remember, these are your letters. You can do whatever you want with them to get them to your liking or standard. Fix them up how you want them and as fly as you want them. This step was simple, although it had been a minute since I dropped anything on this book using this specific method of dropping a piece, where the pencil sketch and outline come first. I had to be really patient. I do think that's why the letters came out so fly. I started adding my inner details with the Hummer Molotov paint marker. I added my cuts, cracks, slices, and I scattered these along every letter. I had a feeling this would bring in more style. There's never a moment where these details don't look fly. Scattering them has a lot to do with this theme of balance we're talking about here. Make sure if you add 1 or 2 details to a letter, the other ones get them too, so you can have that balance. You want all of your letters to have this effect. Not too much though, or not too little. Alright, Now this is a little magic trick I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. It's a real beginner method. I know I started off using this technique. You basically grab an eraser and just start erasing your pencil sketch to have everything clean and precise, as if it's always looked like that. You know what I mean? Once I had erased all the pencil traces, I looked at the letters and just thought to myself that they were looking so fly. I decided to split the filling of the letters into two colors, so I added a line in the middle of the letters using a ruler so it could be precise. I started filling in the bottom half of the letters using a fine touch marigold alcohol-based marker. I filled in the letters as if they came from a coloring book. This is another thing about this specific method of dropping a piece. You fill in the letters like a coloring book, apart from filling in first, as crazy as you want to, or as experimental as you want to, and then adding an outline. I moved on to filling in the top portion of the letters, and I used a pastel peach fine touch alcohol marker. I applied the same coloring book method to the top, except with a lighter color. Since the marigold marker overpowered the pastel peach, I added bubbles with that color in the center of the letters where the dividing lines met, just to give the filling a really subtle detail for the people who really examine things. In small simple straight letters, I added the for the wanderer's name. The letters had the same outline color as all of the other letters, and also got the same fill-in style later on. The Wanderer actually left a comment on one of my first videos when I barely started doing these Blackbook sessions, and I know he's been peeping the videos and appreciates them. That means a lot. It's cool to know that there's people out there who are in tune with the letters, with the ism, with the style, the time, and the maneuvers. So I thought to myself, let me go off for the homie. I know it's only gonna be appreciated. I started applying my 3D using the Hummer Molotov. My 3D was going towards an invisible vantage point that wasn't even on the page. I gathered up every angle and did my usual thing. I kept every line about half an inch long, then closed everything up to give the 3D its full effect. Everything was coming into place. I started filling in my 3D and added those rectangular effects on the inside. And like I've been saying, there even has to be a balance when applying this effect. I filled in those rectangular effects using a melon yellow fine touch alcohol marker. The yellow was cool. I was okay with that choice. Since the Molotov overpowers any alcohol marker, I had no issue just going in there and filling in the little rectangles. I applied the outer outline using a cool gray pastel Molotov. I was plotting on my colors for a cool minute, trying to see what colors would look good. I traced around the letters and their physiques and was digging the color choice. When it came to the little air pockets, I filled them in as well. I started adding some green bubbles using a pale green fine touch alcohol marker. I started adding them from the center of the page and moved left. I added them around and behind the letters and the gray outer outline. I also made sure to leave some empty spaces around the letters. I repeated the same process for the right side of the page, then started filling in the bubbles. Bubbles are a dope effect. Things were now coming into play at this point. With the lighter shade of a green Sharpie, I used it to add more bubbles where the empty spaces around the letters had been left. That way, there were two shades of different greens for the background, adding some more flavor. I added a couple burgundy bubbles and zigzag lines using a Molotov. Then I started working on my inner outline. With the Signal White Molotov 1.5mm nib, I went around the inside portion of the letters, where the outline and fill-in met. I basically intertraced every letter, detail, cut, arrow, and everything in between. I gotta say, this was a dope effect, at least with these colors. I haven't pulled anything off like this in a minute, so I was really satisfied with just going for it and executing this effect. It made the letters pop out so much more. I debated on a background color for a cool minute. I was thinking, brainstorming, plotting on a million. I would have little glimpses of different colors flashing through my mind, and then red crossed my mind, so I rolled with it. I traced around the shape of the bubbles to create a hazard line. I didn't want to go over them in any way. Then I went ahead and started filling in the background using an old red fine touch alcohol based marker. When I was younger, I remember one of my cousins giving me some game, and he told me, since my filling colors are light, I want my background to be dark so the letters could stand out more. I was really young when he told me that, and it's always stuck with me because it makes sense to me. That's what I go based off of sometimes when I'm debating on a color scheme. Things come to me in more of a feeling type of way. There's a level of understanding in me that knows certain colors aren't gonna go hand in hand with each other, so I always put some thought into it. With the cool gray Molotov, I added another layer on top of the outer outline that was already there. That way the outline could be thicker, and this really helped. I also went in on the outline again with the Hummer Molotov, just for the final cleanups, to get it looking sharp and precise. Then I added little details going around the letters. I've seen many writers use them before. It's a cool detail. I don't think I knocked it out of the ballpark though, but I enjoyed the experimentation. I used a white Molotov 1.5mm nib for those details, and I also used it to add a couple stars. I felt like they wouldn't go good on the letters, so I added them on the background. Finally, for the effects, I added some speed lines in the 3D using a Sahara beige pastel Molotov paint marker. The speed lines were also headed to the invisible vantage point the 3D was heading towards. I moved on to my tags and threw up the click and some chunky stylistic letters. I used a white Molotov 1.5mm nib. This is how I wanted the letters to come out on the homie Lotus's burner, but they ended up coming out like bubble letters. I also threw up the channel's emblem, and with the black Molotov 1.5mm nib, I added an outline to these tags, and a slim 3D headed towards the invisible vantage point. While the black ink was drying, I added more details around the letters to add a balance of black and white onto the background. I came back to the tags with the white Molotov and made everything more clean and precise in the emblem and the click hit up. That's all I really wanted to throw up. This was more of a piece to me, so I wanted to let it shine on its own. That was the finished product for the Wanderer and for y'all. I hope you guys enjoyed this session and maybe learned a thing or two. I've been having a blast dropping these for you guys. I hope everyone has been hitting their books and developing their style as well. If you found this video helpful, share it with your people so y'all can step your game up together. Until next time, keep writing. Peace.